The second book of Enoch. The story of Enoch, how the Lord took him to heaven. There was a wise man and a great artisan whom the Lord took away, and he loved him so that he might see the highest realms of the most wise and great and inconceivable unchanging kingdom of God Almighty. Also to see the most marvelous and glorious and shining and many-eyed station of the Lord's servants, and of the Lord's immovable throne, the ranks and organizations of the bodiless armies, the indescribable composition of the multitude of the elements, the variegated appearance and indescribable singing of the army of the cherubim, and of the light without measure, to be an eyewitness. At that time he said, when 165 years were complete for me, I fathered my son Methuselah, and after that I lived 200 years. I completed all the years of my life, 365 years. In the first month, on the assigned day of the first month, I was in my house alone, and I lay on my bed sleeping. And while I slept, a great distress entered my heart, and I was weeping with my eyes in a dream. I could not figure out what this distress might be, nor what might be happening to me. Then 2 huge men appeared to me, the like of which I had never seen on earth. Their faces were like the shining sun. Their eyes were like burning lamps. From their mouths fire was coming forth. Their clothing was various singing. Their wings were more glistening than gold. Their hands were whiter than snow. And they stood at the head of my bed and called me by my name. Then I awoke from my sleep, and I saw those men standing in front of me in actuality. Then I bowed down to them, and I was terrified, and the appearance of my face was changed because of fear. Then those men said to me, "Be brave, Enoch. In truth, do not fear. The eternal God has sent us to you. Behold, you will ascend with us to heaven today. Tell your sons and all the members of your household everything that they must do in your house while they are without you on earth. Let no one search for you until the Lord returns you to them." I hurried and obeyed them. I went out of my house and shut the doors as I had been ordered. I called my sons, Methuselah, and Regem, and Gaidad, and I declared to them all the marvels that those men had told me. Enoch said, "Listen, my children. I do not know where I am going, nor what will confront me. Now, my children, I say to you, do not turn away from God. Walk before his face and keep his commandments. Do not abhor the prayers of your salvation, so that the Lord will not curtail the work of your hands. Do not be ungenerous with the Lord's gifts, and the Lord will not be ungenerous with his donations and love gifts in your storehouses. Bless the Lord with the firstborn of your herds and the firstborn of your children, and a blessing will be on you forever. Do not turn away from the Lord, and do not worship vain gods, gods who did not create the heaven and the earth, or any other created thing, for they will perish, and so will those who worship them. And may God make your hearts true in reverence for him. And now, my children, no one must search for me until the Lord returns me to you. And it came about when I had spoken to my sons, those men called me, and they took me up onto their wings, and carried me up to the first heaven, and placed me on the clouds. And behold, they were moving. There I perceived the air higher up, and higher still I saw the ether. They placed me on the first heaven, and they showed me a vast ocean, much bigger than the earthly ocean. They showed me the 200 angels who govern the stars, and the heavenly combinations. They fly with their wings, and do the rounds of all the planets. There I perceived the treasuries of the snow and ice, and the angels who guard their terrible storehouses. Also the treasury of the clouds from which they come out and go in. They showed me the treasuries of the dew, like olive oil. The appearance of its image was like every kind of earthly flower, only more numerous. And the angels who guard their treasuries, how they are shut and opened. Those men picked me up and brought me up to the second heaven. They showed me, and I saw a darkness greater than earthly darkness. There I perceived prisoners under guard, hanging up, waiting for the measureless judgment. Those angels had the appearance of darkness itself, more than earthly darkness. Unceasingly they made weeping all the day long. I said to the men who were with me, "Why are these ones being tormented unceasingly?" Those men answered me, "These are those who turned away from the Lord, who did not obey the Lord's commandments, but of their own will plotted together, and turned away with their prince, and with those who were under restraint in the fifth heaven." I felt very sorry for them, and those angels bowed down to me and said to me, "Man of God, pray for us to the Lord." And I answered and said, "Who am I, a mortal man, that I should pray for angels? Who knows where I am going, or what will confront me, or who indeed will pray for me?" And those men took me from there, and they brought me up to the third heaven, and set me down there. And I looked downward, and I saw paradise, and that place is inconceivably pleasant. I saw the trees in full flower. Their fruits were ripe and pleasant smelling, with every food in yield, and giving off profusely a pleasant fragrance. In the midst of them was the tree of life, at that place where the Lord takes a rest when he goes into paradise. That tree is indescribable for the pleasantness and fine fragrance, and more beautiful than any other created thing that exists. From every direction it has an appearance which is gold-looking and crimson, and with the form of fire. It covers the whole of paradise, and has something of every orchard tree and every fruit. Its root is in paradise, at the exit that leads to the earth. Paradise is in between the corruptible and the incorruptible. Two streams come forth, one a source of honey and milk, and one a source that produces oil and wine, and it is divided into 4 parts. They go round with a quiet movement, and they come out into the paradise of Eden, between the corruptible and the incorruptible. From there they go forth along the earth. They have a revolution in their cycle, just like the other atmospheric elements. There is no unfruitful tree there. Every tree is well fruited, and every place is blessed. There are 300 angels, very bright, who look after paradise. And with never-ceasing voice and pleasant singing they worship the Lord every day and hour. And I said, How very pleasant is this place. And those men said to me, This place, Enoch, has been prepared for the righteous, who suffer every kind of calamity in their life, and who afflict their souls, and who avert their eyes from injustice, and who carry out righteous judgment, and to give bread to the hungry, and to cover the naked with clothing, and who lift up the fallen, and who help the injured and the orphans, and who walk without a defect before the face of the Lord, and who worship him only. Even for them this place has been prepared as an eternal inheritance. Those men carried me to the northern region, and they showed me there a very frightful place, and all kinds of torture and torments are in that place, cruel darkness and lightless gloom. There is no light there, and a black fire blazes up perpetually, with a river of fire that comes out over the whole place. Fire here, freezing ice there. It dries up and it freezes. There are very cruel places of detention, dark and merciless angels, carrying instruments of atrocities and torturing without pity. I said, Woe, woe, how very frightful this place is. Those men said to me, This place, Enoch, has been prepared for those who do not glorify God, and for those who practice on the earth the sin which is against nature, which is child corruption in the anus in the manner of Sodom, for those who practice witchcraft, enchantments, divinations, trafficking with demons, and who boast about their evil deeds, stealing, lying, insulting, coveting, resentment, fornication, and murder. For those who steal the souls of men secretly, seizing the poor by the throat, taking away their possessions, enriching themselves from the possessions of others, defrauding them when they are able to provide sustenance. For those who bring about the death of the hungry by starvation, and when they are able to provide clothing, take away the last garment of the naked. For those who do not acknowledge their Creator, but bow down to idols which have no souls, which can neither see nor hear, vain gods, constructing images and bowing down to vile things made by hands. For all these, this place has been prepared for an eternal reward. Those men then took me, and they carried me up to the fourth heaven. They showed me there all the movements and sequences, and all the rays of solar and lunar light. I measured their movements, and compared their light. And I saw that the sun has a light 7 times greater than the moon. And I saw his circle and his wheels on which he always goes, going past always like the wind, with quite marvelous speed, and his coming and his going give him no rest day and night. And I saw the 4 great stars on each side, each star having 1,000 stars under it, 4 on the right-hand side of the sun's chariot, and 4 on the left-hand side, each one having 1,000 stars under it, altogether 8,000, going with the sun perpetually. And 150,000 angels accompany the sun in the daytime, and at night 1,000, and 100 angels go in front of the sun's chariot, 6-winged, in flaming fire. and the sun blazes up and sets the 100 angels on fire. I looked and saw flying spirits, the solar elements called phoenixes and chalcedras, strange and wonderful, for their form was that of a lion, and their head was that of a crocodile. Their appearance was multicolored, like a rainbow. Their size was 900 measures. Their wings were those of angels, but they have 12 wings each. They accompany and run with the sun, carrying heat and dew, and whatever is commanded them of God. Thus the sun goes through a cycle, and he goes down and he rises up across the sky and beneath the earth with the light of his rays, and the sun is there on the track unceasingly. And those men carried me away to the east of that heaven, and they showed me the solar gates through which the sun comes out according to the appointment of the seasons, and according to the phases of the moon for the entire year, and according to the numbers of the horologe, day and night. I saw 6 open gates, each gate having 61 stadia and a quarter of a stadium. And I measured carefully, and I figured out their size to be so much, through which the sun comes out and goes off to the west. It becomes even, and goes in through all of the months. The first gate, the sun comes out for 42 days. The second, 35 days. The third, 35 days. The fourth, 35 days. The fifth, 35 days. The sixth, 42 days. And then once more the sun does an about turn and goes back the other way from the 6th gate, according to the round of the season. And the sun goes through the 5th gate 35 days, the 4th 35 days, the 3rd 35 days, the 2nd 35 days. And so the days of the whole year are completed, according to the cycle of the 4 seasons. Then those men carried me away to the west of the heaven, and they showed me 6 large open gates corresponding to the circuit of the eastern gates, opposite them, where the sun sets, according to the number of days, 365 1/4. Thus the sun goes back once again to the eastern gates, under the earth. And when the sun goes out from the western gates, he takes off his light, the splendor which is his radiance, and 400 angels take his crown and carry it to the Lord, for since his shining crown is with God, with 400 angels guarding it. The sun turns his chariot around and goes back under the earth on wheels, without the great light which is his great radiance and ornament. The sun remains for 7 great hours in night, and the chariot spends half its time under the earth. And when he comes to the eastern approaches in the 8th hour of the night, the 400 angels bring back the crown and crown him, and his brightness and the shining of his crown are seen before sunrise, and the sun blazes out more than fire does. Then the solar elements, called phoenixes and chalcedras, burst into song. That is why every bird flaps its wings, rejoicing at the giver of light. They burst into song at the Lord's command. The light giver is coming to give radiance to the whole world, and the morning watch appears, which is the sun's rays. And the sun comes out over the face of the earth, and retrieves his radiance, to give light to all the face of the earth. They showed me the calculation of the sun's movement, and the gates by which he goes in and out. For these are the great gates which God created to be an annual horologe. This is why the sun has the greater heat, and the cycle for him goes on for 28 years, and begins once more from the start. And another calculation those men showed me, that of the moon, and all the movements and phases, and 12 big gates, crowned from the west to the east, through which the moon goes in and goes out, in accordance with the regular seasons. She goes in by the first western gate, in the place of the sun, by the first gate for 31 days exactly, the second for 35 days exactly, the third for 31 days exactly, the fourth for 30 days exactly, the fifth for 31 days extraordinarily, the sixth for 31 days exactly, the seventh for 30 days exactly, the eighth for 31 days extraordinarily, the ninth for 31 days accurately, the 10th for 30 days exactly, the 11th for 31 days exactly, the 12th for 22 days exactly. Thus likewise by the western gates, in accordance with the cycle and in accordance with the number of eastern gates. Thus she goes in also by the western gates, and she completes the year, 364 days. The moon passes by the quarters for 3 years, and the fourth completes it exactly. For this reason they are taken away outside heaven for 3 years, and are not to be added to the number of days, because these ones change the seasons of the year, 2 new moons increasing, 2 others decreasing. And when the western gates are completed, she turns around and goes to the eastern ones with her light. Thus she goes day and night, in accordance with the heavenly cycles, lower than all the cycles, swifter than the heavenly winds, spirits, elements, and flying angels, with 6 wings on each angel. The moon has a 7-fold intercalation, and a period of revolution of 19 years, and she begins once again from the start. In the middle of the heaven I saw armed troops, worshipping the Lord with tympani, pipes, unceasing and pleasant voices, accompanied with pleasant, unceasing and various songs, which is impossible to describe. Every mind would be quite astonished, so marvelous and wonderful is the singing of these angels. And I was delighted listening to them. And those men took me up on their wings, and placed me on the 5th heaven. And I saw there many innumerable armies called Grigori. Their appearance was like the appearance of a human being, and their size was larger than that of large giants. And their faces were dejected, and the silence of their mouths was perpetual. And there was no liturgy in the 5th heaven. I then said to the men who were with me, "What is the explanation that these ones are so very dejected, and their faces miserable, and their mouths silent? And why is there no liturgy in this heaven?" And those men answered me, "These are the Grigori, who turned aside from the Lord, 200 myriads, together with their prince Satanael. And similar to these are those who went down as prisoners in their train, who are in the 2nd heaven, imprisoned in great darkness. And 3 of them descended to the earth from the Lord's throne onto the place Hermon, and they broke the promise on the shoulder of Mount Hermon. And they saw the daughters of men, how beautiful they were, and they took wives for themselves, and the earth was defiled by their deeds. They and the wives of men created great evil in the entire time of this age, acted lawlessly, and